The heads of NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, we're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady. I mean, they're crazy far.
Once again, Bill Maher steps into the spotlight, presenting himself as the fearless outsider, yet somehow never straying too far from his political comfort zone. This time his criticism is aimed at Kamala Harris and Tim Walz following their highly polished exchange with Dana Bash. The segment was meant to reassure viewers, but it came off more like a carefully rehearsed production. The smiles looked timed, the phrases sounded memorized, and the tougher questions seemed to dissolve before they could land. When even Maher starts sounding unimpressed, it suggests the performance felt more staged than sincere.
I mean, I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
Yeah. I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat, in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing?" And I said, "What do you mean the same thing?" And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, it's always about how somebody can't do something. And that's what she was getting at, was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now. I will listen to it daily, but it's no longer a general audience venue that you just give up national.
Still, Maher's criticism carries its own layers. His objections often resemble tactical frustration rather than a clean break over principle. It's as if he's less concerned with right versus wrong and more worried about optics and electability. Instead of fully distancing himself from figures like Harris or Walz, he critiques their execution, not necessarily their direction. On controversial issues, the language shifts quickly from moral certainty to strategic nuance. The emphasis appears to be maintaining political viability, not redefining values.
A big effort on the left to understand what they are talking about. Because I don't think it's insincere on their part. I think they think we're going to hell in a handcart. And one reason I think that is because the story that came out this week about NPR. NPR is to them what this country would be if it was a permanent Democratic governorship. And if you missed the story on NPR, it's pretty interesting. A guy named Uri Berliner came out. He wrote it. He'd been there for a long time, 25 years. This guy, by the way, went to Sarah Lawrence and was raised by a lesbian peace activist. So he's
very Sean Hannity.
Very Sean Hannity. He said, "I've been at NPR for 25 years. Here's how we lost America's trust." And it's just about how this place, which, the show was called, the big show was called All Things Considered. It's not all things considered. He's not wrong. And he pointed out, for example, that of the 87 people working in editorial positions there, 87 are Democrats. Even if you're a Democrat, you can't think.
Episodes like this help explain why skepticism toward public figures keeps rising. Politicians and commentators speak passionately about transparency and accountability, yet their stances can appear fluid when circumstances change. Voters notice the contrast between rhetoric and action. What is presented as adaptability can be interpreted as inconsistency. Over time, that perception fuels alternative movements that promise clarity and conviction, even if those promises are debated. Consistency, real or perceived, becomes more attractive than polished messaging.
You're a rabid progressive. And do you not think it's a problem that your political leanings make it seem to the American people that you're not biased and that you're not doing your job? Because you agree that your job is to have journalistic integrity, right?
Absolutely, but there is a strong firewall between the newsroom and anything that I
Let's talk about the newsroom. You have 87 registered Democrats, not a single Republican in your editor board. So, I mean, how does that work to give us the perception that you're doing your job of actually delivering unbiased information?
Well, I would agree with you that that number is a concern if it is accurate. I do believe that we need to have journalists who represent the full breadth of the American society so that we can report well for all Americans.
Well, I think that you are failing. I realize you've only been there for a year, but I just really think that while it is a small portion of your budget, you very much should expect to restructure your revenue streams, because I don't think that NPR is necessarily worth saving.
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become.
The generational shift unfolding now isn't tied to one candidate or one news cycle. Many younger citizens, particularly young men, express frustration with institutions they believe emphasize image over substance. Corporate branding campaigns, workplace initiatives, and constant social media positioning can feel manufactured rather than meaningful. Others counter that these frameworks are necessary for progress and inclusion. The tension between authenticity and institutional messaging continues to widen. Ultimately, the question isn't just about party loyalty, it's about credibility. What is reshaping political identity for this generation? The discussion is still evolving, and perspectives vary widely.